Welcome to episode 3 of 101 Mobility Conversations. I'm really excited to meet you and more about you. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Really happy to be here, Joe.
So I've done a lot of research on you and I know your story, but I know many of the people listening to this podcast won't. Can we just start with a little bit about your story and how you got into building this great company?
Absolutely. So I never really wanted to be an entrepreneur. I was just having this conversation with someone yesterday. I lost my leg in 2018 and really struggled with kind of finding a new normal. But one of the challenges that I experienced was with clothing. My first prosthetic, as a lot of amputees who are amputees due to trauma may relate, my first prosthetic was huge. Like I couldn't find anything that would fit over the top. I was really struggling to dress myself independently. It was the first challenge of the day. It was the last challenge of the day when I was getting ready for bed. And then it was a problem all during the day because I would have to go completely undressed to change prosthetic socks and things. It was just one thing. And I had been sewing since I was really young. So I just went to the sewing machine. I was like, I'm going to do this for myself. And then my problem is going to be fixed. It's going to be fine. I'm going to move on with my life. I was studying chemistry at the time. I was working at Los Alamos National Lab. And while I was healing, I wasn't able to work in the lab because I had open wounds. I was working with chemicals. It was dangerous. And I was still having surgery. So I was like, well, I'll do. Some of my friends in the amputee community were like, hey, can you alter things for me? I really like what you've done with yours. So I started just a small alterations business on the side, and then it just snowballed. I was on a sewing machine all day and all night doing alterations for not just amputees, but folks with a really wide range of disability. And as that started to grow, I was like, there's really nothing out here. This wasn't my plan, right? I wasn't planning on having an alterations business. I was in chemistry. I was like, I really want to be able to point people somewhere and say, hey, you can go find a product like this that's ready to wear. And there was nothing. So I was like, all right, well, my side business, I'm going to not be on a sewing machine. I'm going to do a production line. And it'll be a side thing on the side of my chemistry career. And then it just kept growing and it kept gaining more traction. And then I kept getting messages around how much this really impacts someone's life and independence when you're able to dress by yourself. And then the other element to it was that it looked like fashion. It looked nice. There were some options out there that were more hospital gown or my great grandma wouldn't even wear some of this stuff. It was very medicalized. I was like, well, I want to pull it into the fashion space. Anyway, so I'm rambling, but long story short, it just snowballed from an alterations business. And now we're a ready-to-wear collection, which I felt very strongly was the most accessible version of this. If you can go online, better yet, the next spoiler, anyway, I think we're going to get to this, but the next step that I want to take is to have someone be able to go into a store and try on adaptive fashion and be able to have that in-store shopping experience instead of the alteration side. So that's the direction that we went and are continuing to grow in.
Well, it's a fascinating story. When you were in Colorado and you're doing these alterations, did it start with you just took a pair of ladies' pants and you're just putting in zippers and that's how it started?
Yes. And then, so it started as I was doing alterations. So folks were sending me existing clothing and then I was sending them back. And that was a hassle for the customer. It was not the best user experience. So the next thing I did is I bought in bulk overstock jeans from stores that outlets. You can buy jeans by the pound. I don't know if you knew this, but you can't control the size or the style or anything like that. But I bought boxes of jeans and I was doing mass alterations because it was for amputees and especially folks with lymphedema are unlimited, what is now our unlimited collection. That's the easiest altered into something. So I was able to do bulk alterations and then sell them ready to wear. But I couldn't control the sizes that I was getting or the colors I was getting because I was buying them by the pound and it was whatever was left over, right? And then eventually we got to the point where we were manufacturing our own line a couple of years ago, and that was so much easier and better quality experience. But, you got to kind of do some scrappy things to get off the ground.
And you mentioned that you were getting customers. How, what was the marketing system you used? Word of mouth, and just how did you begin to build your customer base?
Yeah, it was a lot of word of mouth, and it was a lot of physical and occupational therapists learning about us and being like, well, I'm going to recommend this to every one of my clients because everyone I know is struggling with this. And so it started from a healthcare professional and like caretaker perspective almost, they were looking for this. But then we decided to go in the direction of designing for the end user. And I think we share a value of independence in both of our companies. So we're like, if we're designing for someone, the end user, to be able to easily dress themselves, then that helps the caretakers too. But our goal is to give comfort, confidence, and independence to that person who's actually wearing the clothing.
It really is a village,
And
right?
that's,
You have the end user who needs the product, but then you mentioned physical therapists and other folks, and then there's the caretaker. It could be a parent, it could be a child. In our business, most of the folks are the children, helping the parents with the equipment that they need. And it makes marketing difficult because the end user needs the product, but I have to explain the value of this to the people who may be giving advice to them. So that's really interesting. So you go from word of mouth in Colorado, and you have this life change, and then boom, you're on Shark Tank. So
yes.
what was that journey to get to Shark Tank?
So Shark Tank came about. I had launched a Kickstarter when I was like, I'm doing these bulk alterations. I felt like I had proved the space out enough and collected enough data to do a true production run of our own line. So I launched a Kickstarter. And part of Kickstarter, you make a really like fancy video to explain what your product is and does. And there's a producer from Shark Tank that saw our Kickstarter video. And she reached out and she was like, hey, I saw your Kickstarter video. Have you ever considered applying to Shark Tank? And I was like, okay, like, sure, you're from Shark Tank. But she had the like ABC email. And it's just like when you start a company, everybody's like, when are you going on Shark Tank? Like, I thought it was a joke. And then she's like, well, the reason I ask is because the first round of applications for Shark Tank you have to submit a video. The founder has to be in it explaining the product. She's like, all of our production team has already seen your Kickstarter video and you've already passed the first round. If you want to go on Shark Tank, like the video that you did for Kickstarter already passed. So maybe see where this goes. And they were very good at like giving you just little pieces of things to do along the way. It was a lot of work between that conversation and actually going, because it's like 6 months, several hours a week of like things for Shark Tank to prepare. And I actually asked if I could defer because I was like, we just launched. Like I am pre-selling my first production line. I'm afraid I'm going to go get destroyed on Shark Tank. Can we wait till next season? And she's like, well, if you wait, you never know if you're going to have the opportunity to go on again. So I went on. It was the most wonderful experience. Going on Shark Tank was one of the best things that could have happened to me and the business. Spoilers, we got to deal with Mark Cuban and Emma Greed. And I continue to work with them now. It's just been really game-changing for the company.
It was a wonderful episode. I think what the quote was, it was the perfect deal for you because you got in quickly. So I have to ask, the point of this is not to really dig into the whole experience, but, we see 3 to 4 minutes of screen time. How long did it take you guys to film from the time you walk out to the time that you're walking back with a big smile on your face with $100,000 for 10% of your company?
Yeah, ours was really short. So they allow, I'm not sure what the exact, it was like they allow like an hour and a half to 2 hours if it takes that long to get to the conclusion of getting a deal or no. Ours was really fast, like 25 minutes maybe.
Really?
Yeah, and they do a really good job in the editing of making it seem very organized and like because each shark has an individual microphone. But they're all talking on top of each other and so you're standing there and they're all asking you questions. Like just it's none of the questions were like out of left field though. Like they were all very normal investor questions, but they were just all coming at once. It was very shark. I feel like the name Shark Tank is very appropriate, and it felt even more appropriate being in there and having everyone kind of talking at you at once. And so I was like I knew I wanted to deal with Emma Grede because she's, if you're not familiar with her, she's the co-founder of Good American, which is, I think now $1 billion denim brand. And so she is exactly where we want to go, So I was like, I really want Emma Grede. And then when Mark came in on the deal too, I was just like, I think that's why they said the perfect deal, because she asks me at the end, she's like, how was it? How was the experience? I was like, it was perfect. Like I could not have asked for anything more. Yeah.
My wife and I watch the show religiously, and when they start pitching, I literally say, "Oh, I'm rooting for that. I'm rooting for them. I'm rooting for them." And like you were instantly, "Oh, I'm rooting for this one. This is just great." And I was not in this company at that time, but I just like,
oh really?
No, I wasn't. And my first thing was, why hasn't this happened before, Erica? It's amazing. And are you, like, with your success and the growth and everything else? I mean, have there been other entries into the space now that are beginning to move forward this idea? What's the competitive set now that you are faced with?
There have been, and that's really exciting to me, because the challenge in our space right now, I think a lot of people ask me that and they're like, are you like threatened? And I understand where that question is coming from, but so few people know that adaptive apparel even exists, and so few people know to look for it, that the size of the industry is growing very rapidly as people become aware of adaptive clothing. So the more people get into the space, the more everybody who's in the space is elevated. And then it's a better customer experience too, because you want to be able to have options. Like the only thing that's uniting our customers, the only theme is that they experience disability or challenges in dressing. But we have like punk rock girl over here and cowboy guy over here who both need adaptive clothing, but they have very different senses of style. And so it's important to have a wide breadth of brands in this space so that both of those people can find what they're looking for that reflects their style, but also their adaptive need. So it's exciting to see more folks in the space. The other thing I'm very proud of is actually, like, I don't want to take too much credit, but I will, like, give myself a little pat on the back. I think when we were early in the space and in the company, we had to prove that adaptive was a space worth serving. Like, brands didn't want to enter it. You asked, like, kind of why hasn't this been done before? Because people have so underestimated the size and value of this market because there weren't options. It hadn't been proven out. So we were like one of the early ones in the space having to prove that this is not only socially right, but it's a real business opportunity also. So once we started proving that out, we're launching with 2 major retailers this year, which I'm incredibly proud of. And I think that once these retailers launch into adaptive, it's going to put pressure on other folks to enter the space too, which is really my goal. Is I would want adaptive apparel to be a shoppable category that stands alongside, petite clothing, maternity clothing, big and tall, how you can filter by those categories. I want adaptive to have the same shopping experience for the customer. So that's
Excellent. And I agree with you that, having good competitors just brings awareness of the products and solutions to serve more lives, right? And so, we obviously as a business provide accessibility to folks in our homes, and, it's a big market, but there are still a lot of seniors and people with disability that don't know that there are solutions to help them get in their homes, get upstairs, be safer in their bathrooms. And so I agree. Let the best brand and quality, lead, but awareness is good for everybody.
absolutely.
I have to ask the name of the company. So was that organic, genuine? How'd you come up with that?
Oh my gosh, it was day one. I don't even remember like how I came up with it or where it came from, but it has never been called anything but No Limits. And it was like immediately, I was like, okay, if I'm starting a company, it's going to be called No Limits. Um, and it's meaningful, obviously. So I'm an amputee, obviously very much speaks to my experience, but also to how we want the customer to feel in wearing this clothing. And also just as a person with a disability, we want people to feel like they have no limits. Um, and it's a reflection on, I'm very proud to be leading this space genuinely. Like, I think it's important as this space grows that people with disabilities are involved in the development of it. I think a lot of times accessibility can be driven by non-disabled people. And while buy-in from non-disabled people is important, like, we need to not forget who this is for. And so I'm really proud that we're a disability-owned company. We employ people with disabilities and are advancing the space from within the community. So that's kind of all I feel like what that name means to me.
Well, I love it. I just, being a branding guy, I just think it hits all the points, what you do, how you do it. And I just think it's incredible. You mentioned
Thank
your
you.
team. The last thing I read, you had a team of 5 or 6 people. And is that team continue to grow? And where are you based out of?
We are based in Richmond, Virginia. We are really keeping it tight on the team side. We're focused on getting into retail and expanding retail presence. And we've got really just a dream team making it happen now. So we've been really efficient from that side of it, which I'm really proud of. Uh, yeah, it's been just an incredible experience having I don't take for granted, like, so few people get to choose the people that they work with. And as an entrepreneur, that's a very unique experience. And I so treasure that because I always use the phrase stars aligned when it came to the team coming together. Like, everybody is not only incredibly passionate about the space, but just stupidly qualified. I'm like, are you sure you want to come work for me? Like, you have all this experience in the space and you want to come work for this like small startup. But it's been really cool having that team experience.
People are drawn to passion. That's the key part of leadership, Erica. That's just, I think, doesn't get enough credit or awareness, actually. One of the things that Wonderful Mobility and your company share is the support of veterans. We're going to serve nearly 11,000 veterans this year. Our first order 15 years ago served a veteran. So it's core to who we are. I read in several of the pieces and on Shark Tank, you mentioned, I think one of your first orders was for a veteran. Can you talk about your servicing of the veteran administration and the impact that's had on you and your company?
Yes, absolutely. A lot of our work with veterans has gone through nonprofits. And so nonprofits will be wanting to support veterans, place orders on behalf of the veteran community. We are now building and scaling to the point where my goal is to take direct orders from the VA to serve veterans, to get it to folks more efficiently and not have to rely on nonprofits to get as a kind of intermediary to get that deal done. But it's been really cool we have done a couple events with veteran groups. We did like veteran bowling, climbing, like adaptive sporting things. And I always love going and hearing stories from folks in those spaces. And I love the community that veterans have in those spaces. So we do a lot of work with groups like that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was visiting our franchise owner in Birmingham, Alabama, about a month ago, and we had to replace a stair lift in the home. And I got to know the veteran. He was a veteran from the Vietnam War, and he had not been able to get upstairs in nearly a month and a half. And we fixed it. And I'm not sure I helped a whole lot. The installer was amazing. I was probably making it worse to get it installed on time. But when we got it done, he pulled me aside and he thanked me. And he's like, I haven't been able to sleep in my bed for over a month. and I can't wait to go upstairs and sleep in my own bed. And you just can't help but understand how important that was to him. He had a 2-story home, and it was beautiful. He had this great landscaping. He had flowers, and just the idea that that night he could go to bed in his own bed, or sleep in his own bed was amazing. And so, we have that direct impact, and sometimes we take for granted the freedom and access we have, and he didn't have it. He was sleeping in his chair in his living room, and yeah, it was a good day to be there and help that veteran.
Yes, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, there's so much taken for granted until you have this experience of not being able to do something that everybody else is doing, like getting up the stairs, like dressing yourself in the morning. It's that's something that we hear a lot, is like, I never thought about this thing until experiencing it, or until taking care of someone who's experiencing it. And I'm hoping that we can kind of use our brand and platform to make folks think a little bit more about, like, actually, yeah, that would be difficult. How can we address accessibility in some other ways so we're not taking it for granted?
So what's next, Erica? You got a growing company. What's the next objective and opportunities for you?
Yes, we are launching in 2 huge retailers this year. And so they're online deals now. And then next year, the goal is to get into stores, and I am sure I will send you an update when we can talk about which retailers those are. But my goal next year is really to have folks be able to go into a store, be able to try on our products, experience them in person with the same shopping experience that everyone else is able to have with adaptive clothing. So that's on the horizon for us.
Yeah, you think about it. Most of the department stores have handicap accessibility. They can get in and just add the clothes. So that's exciting. Eric, I've really enjoyed getting to know you, getting to know your story online and prepping for this. And I'm really glad that Brooke got us connected. And I look forward to staying in touch with you and tracking your success. And please do send me the retail operations. I'd love to go see the clothes for myself. And
Yes,
and
I
anything.
absolutely will.
Well, I can't thank you enough for spending time with us today, and I know our audience will love getting to know you. And those that did not meet you on Shark Tank, they'll learn about a really special company doing special work for people. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much, Joe. It's really wonderful meeting you.
Take care, Erica. And that wraps up our time with Erica Cole on 101 Mobility Conversations. We'll catch you on the next episode. Take care.